Get started, folks.
All right, let's go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates on November 28, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up first?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner Savis is walking to his chair. Commissioner West is on his way. We'll start with consent agenda requests. Chair, would you please convene as the development agency?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a development agency.
These are requests for consent agenda for the Development Agency of Clackamas County. Item 1, approval of a grant. Approval to grant a permanent right-of-way easement for road purposes from the Clackamas County Development Agency to Clackamas County, and grant a quitclaim deed from Clackamas County Development Agency to the State of Oregon Military Department. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith, Commissioners, harken back to June of 2016.
Please, God.
That is
no.
when the first phase of the Sunrise opened. As crazy as this sounds, we are in the process right now to finalize a couple of different things related to that project, okay? Essentially, we have an agreement in place with ODOT, who's the main construction partner on that project. So nothing's in violation, no operational agreements, no issues there, okay? But essentially what they're doing is they're trying to close the project out, which means that they got to finalize a bunch of property transfers. And if you think about that project, it was not only the main corridor of phase 1 of the Sunrise from I-205 extending south to Highway 212, but there were another auxiliary roads, Minuteman Way, there were improvements to Lawn Field, local connections, et cetera. There are two items on your agenda today. One is this one under the Development Agency, where essentially Development Agency had a willing seller, willing buyer program. We secured some right-of-way properties in different areas to support the construction of this project. And this essentially is the giving of those rights. It's the giving of those rights, one, an easement, basically to Clackamas County, on property that we owned, which is essentially the Minuteman Way corridor. Which was a road built, I think you're all familiar with it. It's kind of down parallels the road right away by Camp Withicum. It's that north-south road. And then secondly, as a part of that negotiation that went on between all the parties, there was a discussion around the dead ending of Mather Road. If you recall, I mean, harken back like 20 years ago, Mather used to go and extend off, say where Minuteman Way is at, and connected up the hill. It got disconnected because of a landslide at one point in time, long time ago. At one point in time, the road essentially with these improvements with the Sunrise, it dead ends right now. And so the Development Agency said, well, wait a minute, we don't want, there's a right-of-way vacation that was there. We don't need that property, we don't want that property, so essentially we agreed to quit claim it to the Oregon Military Department, okay? Basically Camp Withicum to the south, so they have interest in that, and they have responsibility for that, like it's a private road right now. So essentially if you think about Minuteman Way, where you take that, you come past Camp Withicum and you take that turn to the left and you go up, there's that little stub street off to your right, that's essentially the property that we're talking about. So it's all the responsibility of the Oregon Military Department now with this transfer. So essentially there's two things. One, this is granting that easement from the Development Agency to Clackamas County. And then second is that quitclaim for that little stub of street that's over by Camp Withicum. There will be a subsequent document that we talk about later in the agenda under Clackamas County where we accept some of those things as well, but we had to basically transfer it from the agency first. I'd be happy to answer any questions as clear as mud that might have been.
Clear as mud. Is there any consideration being exchanged for this quitclaim deed?
For the quitclaim, no, it's just it's getting us out of long-term maintenance responsibilities for the roadway that was there. Yep.
Which is a benefit.
Yep.
Questions, commissioners, on this? See no objections.
Item 2, approval of a contract amendment with Elder Demo for the demolition of the former Miles Fiberglass building. Amendment value is $407,534. Total contract value is increased to $673,427. Funding is through the Clackamas Town Center Urban Renewal Plan area. No county general funds are involved.
So let's start with a discussion on the fact the Board of County Commissioners previously approved a demolition contract, okay? And that demolition contract was in the amount of $265,893. That allows us to secure the services of a contractor to demolish Miles Fiberglass. We knew that as a part of that process, they have to go through and do a hazardous material assessment on that building. And that means submit professional analysis of the building. It means submitting that information to DEQ, and with a plan of mitigation, getting that plan back from DEQ, and then hiring the expertise, because the demolition contractor doesn't have that expertise in hand. They're basically big machines and equipment to demo things, not the technical aspect of the mediation. So we were planning to bring this forward to you the week of September 18th. Basically a modification to the contract. And that modification of the contract would have been for about $385,000. This is pre-fire, okay? So then, wake up Saturday, September 16th, look out my front window, we see the flames out front and the smoke, and the building is in dire need of it's undergoing this disaster situation associated with it. We basically activated a contract with the county administrator's approval under the emergency authorization reviewed through Clackamas County. It changed that contract to a time and materials contract because we had to act quick. And you talk about the fact that, I mean, basically, the fire happened Saturday morning. By Saturday afternoon, we had activated our contractors to do testing, not only at the site, but also in the surrounding areas. By Sunday, we had testing and cleanup underway. And then basically by Sunday, September 18th, we had mobilized mitigation crews on site to start cleaning the property. So essentially, we are here looking for a modification to the contract for amendment number 1, due to the emergency authorization in accordance with LCRB rules for emergency procurement in accordance with the LCRB C-47-0910 for an amendment to this contract for public improvement. I guess the takeaway from all those numbers, even though we did not demo it the way we would prefer to demo the building, the net increase is around $21,000. The difference, the delta, it's about $21,000 more because we had to activate those contracts. Keep in mind, we not only had to activate them for the site, we had to activate them in that emergency situation to be broader.
Sure.
Because they had to deal with some of the testing for surrounding properties and cleanup. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Commissioner West?
So make sure I understand this correctly. The fire, even though there's less structure there now because of a fire, made it more expensive because of remediation of hazardous materials?
It took it more, it shifted some of the workload. So basically, some of the workload that was more in the demolition category, there was more workload in the demolition category and less in the mediation category. It moved more to the mediation category and less in the demolition area. Okay. And it expanded the services, because if you keep in mind, our contract was on that property for those services, and with that event, we had to expand that contract out to surrounding properties for testing.
Okay, so the fire made it a bigger job, actually?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
We couldn't foresee that.
Yet it only cost us about $22,000.
It's, net
More
increase.
net increase, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it we're looking at. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you. Dan, you can stay at the table. Chair, would you please convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as a development agency and convene as a Board of County Commissioners.
Next, our request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. First, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval to accept a permanent easement from the Oregon Department of Transportation and accept a permanent right-of-way easement for road purposes from the Clackamas County Development Agency. No fiscal impact. No county general funds are involved.
We just talked about the granting from the Development Agency. This is for Minuteman Way. This is the acceptance from the county. Okay, so it's the acceptance not only from the Development Agency. If you think about that road, it crosses Development Agency property, and then it also crosses a Region 1 maintenance facility, which is in the northern portion of that road, where it bends right and connects down the way. So basically, as a part of the agreement, we were accepting for a county road that property from the Development Agency and that property from the Oregon Department of Transportation was transferred for no cost. Yep.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with Carl Douglas Cox for code compliance, hearings officer services. Total value is $600,000 for 6 years. Funding is through permitting revenue, solid waste franchise fees, and fees for service. No county general funds are involved.
We do code compliance. And essentially, in providing enforcement around our various codes, where feasible and legally permissible, Our county code enforcement group provides a wide range of enforcement options. Those range from voluntary compliance, education and mediation, but in some circumstances, a greater level of enforcement is required. And these items are required to be taken to a hearings officer for appeal or review. And essentially, the compliance hearings officer serves as an impartial and unbiased decision maker when it comes to our codes. He or she issues fines, fees, costs, expenses, and conditions or restrictions associated with the project. And essentially, this service that we try to resolve the majority of our code compliance issues at a lower level. We do have a number where we cannot get movement or satisfaction or compliance, and under those circumstances, we take those to the county or to this hearings officer review and enforcement.
Does this hearings officer have to be a licensed attorney?
Yes.
Okay, in the state of Oregon. So
Yes.
this Carl Douglas Cox is that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Questions or comments, Commissioner Scholl?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, this contract, this is for time and services with a $600K maximum contract?
Over the 6 years, and I believe it's $100,000, not to exceed $100,000 a year.
Yeah, I got you.
Yep.
Commissioner West?
Why is the contract 6 years? And often we like to see them be a little bit shorter because we have control when we do contracts, a little more control, and we can make changes and adjustments. But 6 years seems like a long time.
Hearings officers are kind of a dying breed, in all honesty. There isn't a lot of, if you look at the procurement, we went out for we did an RFP, advertised in accordance with requirements. We got one respondent. And there just aren't a lot of folks that are kind of doing this work at this point in time, and so we felt it was beneficial that we found somebody. And we have a history with, this individual has done hearings officer work through separate contracts previously and has done good work. And so the thought was essentially to try to secure those services as long as we could for a reasonable amount.
So in this instance, it's your opinion that we do the longer contract
Yes.
because then we can guarantee services for
Yes.
a long time. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a revenue agreement, of a revenue intergovernmental grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Human Services for the Senior Medicare Patrol Grant for Medicare Consumer Education. Agreement value is $18,500 for 1 year. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and $1,605 in budgeted county general funds. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. So this is part of the Senior Health Insurance Benefit Administration Program administered by our Social Services Division. The SHEBA program, which is funded by 3 different grants, uses certified counselors to provide local and confidential help to residents that have questions about Medicare. This particular grant funds consumer education on preventing Medicare fraud, waste, and abuse. And last year, through this program, we connected with 305 Medicare beneficiaries on this topic and also participated in over 20 outreach events, reaching more than 350 additional people.
Commissioner West?
Does this program have anything to do with the HRSN 1115 waivers that help people have housing supports, nutritional supports, climate support that we're working on? Does it intersect with that at all?
So indirectly, yes. I mean, as a department, H3S is attuned to the new benefits that will be coming out through the 1115 waiver, and we're in ongoing discussions with all of our divisions about how we leverage those new benefits and make sure they're integrated into our existing programs and services so that will be complementary. You know that there's funding gaps, there's service gaps, and so absolutely we'll keep our eye on these things. And some of these seniors most likely will benefit from things like the climate and nutrition supports.
And this isn't the 1115 waiver funding. It isn't. It's not one or the other. It's both.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably to be determined where there are existing benefits funded with Medicaid dollars that, you know, we won't be able to double dip on those things, right? Of course. So, but I guess the details as far as billing for the services and things like that, that's still in the works. All the administrative rules, the billing processes, the funding allocations, that's still in the works. And so I don't know yet whether that will affect something like this allocation, but I think we can expect it will only be supplementary to existing programming.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of an amendment to a fixed-price revenue sub-agreement from Oregon State University for Parenting Education Program. Amendment value is $93,311 for 1 year. Total agreement value is increased to $215,851 for 3 years. Funding is through Oregon State University. No county general funds are involved.
So this item and the next one are both agreements with Oregon State University that pass funding through from 2 different State of Oregon entities for parenting education programming administered by our Children, Family, and Community Connections Division. This action adds funds to an existing agreement that passes the funds through from ODHS. The next item is a new agreement that continues funding passed from the Department of Early Learning and Care. Since 2014, the Parenting Hub has provided parenting education and family support to over 48,000 participants through 2,600 classes and workshops.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of a revenue sub-agreement from Oregon State University for parenting education programming. Agreement value is $176,063 for 1 year. Funding is through Oregon State University. No county general funds are involved.
So again, the Oregon State University receives pass-through funding from a number of state agencies. In this case, this agreement continues funding passed through from the state's Department of Early Learning and Care. And the objective of this program in general is to deliver evidence-based parenting education to foster positive family dynamics, mitigate detrimental behaviors such as substance abuse and alcoholism, and augment social aptitude and academic achievement.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 4, approval of an amendment increasing funding and term of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas Fire District Number 1 for ambulance services. Amendment value is $147,408.89 for 1 year. Total agreement value is increased to $3,575,499.96 for 10.67 years. Funding through the Cost Savings Program with American Medical Response Northwest. No county general funds are involved.
So you've already approved 2 agreements like this over the past month, one with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue on the 7th and one with Lake Oswego Fire District on the 21st. These agreements provide funding to consortium agencies to guarantee paramedic response times. In consortium areas, a paramedic response dispatched by one of the consortium agencies gives American Medical Response more time to respond to the scene. It's a way of leveraging capacity across the EMS system to balance demand and ensure people get the rapid care that they need. This agreement supports the EMS system and the work the EMS Council, staff, and stakeholders are doing to improve EMS in Clackamas County and ensuring rapid paramedic response times by supporting integration and collaboration among our first responders and our private ambulance provider.
Commissioner West.
Sorry, I feel like I have all the questions today. I don't understand how increasing response times gets people rapid and quick care that they need. I firmly believe time is life in many of these instances, or especially when you're having a stroke, a heart attack, or some other medical emergency. Can you explain a little bit more why more longer response times is better care?
Yeah, so this is actually intended to provide for a lower response time by leveraging the capacity of our first responders. So, but when they're going to be on the scene, so you're right, time is life. And when they're going to be on the scene, so a call gets dispatched, right? That call lights up for both AMR and our other first responders like the fire districts. If they indicate the ability to get to the scene with a paramedic, it gives AMR additional time to get there. So it sort of helps us balance what might be competing pressures and ensures that the primary objective is met with the paramedic getting to the scene right away.
So Clackamas Fire is augmenting the response time.
Absolutely.
Do we have the software capable of like that kind of algorithm, kind of like who goes where and which and who has what and whose territory is when? And I don't know, I've been down there. Do we have that kind of capacity really?
So in anticipation of your very question, I was asking Philip about this yesterday, and the answer is yes, that this, like I said, it kind of lights up, and I'm going to butcher this a little bit, if you will, but in layperson's terms, yes, this is a shared system. And so AMR knows if the, one of these fire districts is responding with the paramedic, they know, okay, we're good for now, but we still need to get there as quickly as we can, but we're not bound by like the 2-second, it's like a 2-second factor in the agreement that gives, or 2-minute factor that gives them a longer response time. So yes, in layperson's terms, these things communicate with one another and there's integration.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of an amendment increasing funding, extending the term and updating program language of an intergovernmental revenue agreement with Oregon Health and Science University for the Oregon Care Coordination Program. Amendment value is $74,977 for 1 year. Total agreement value increased to $474,095 for 5.2 years. Funding is through Oregon Health Science University grant funds. No county general funds are involved.
So Clackamas County Public Health Division receives grant funding from OHSU to continue this Oregon Care Coordination Program, and it allows us to provide children and youth with special health needs to improve health and well-being through public health home visiting and increasing community-based and family-centered care coordination.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 6, approval of an amendment increasing funding and extending the term of a revenue grant agreement from the Oregon Department of Early Learning and Care for continuation of coordinated enrollment services for families eligible for publicly funded preschool programs. Amendment value is $173,980 for 1 year. Total agreement value is increased to $564,480 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Early Learning and Care. No county general funds are involved.
So like the two agreements with OSU, this provides funding for our early learning programming through Children, Family, and Community Connections. And this amendment extends the term of the funding and adds funding and enables us to continue to support young children to learn and thrive in Clackamas County by implementing collaborative and ongoing coordinated enrollment that focuses on enrolling children into preschool for families eligible for publicly funded preschool, improving the quality of existing early education programs.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, how many families do we serve each year under this program? Do you know?
Last year, this program served 196 children and supported more than 500 families in connecting with preschool and other resources.
And where are these preschools? Are they in-home? Are they mom and pops? Are
I'd
they
have to
kinder care? Are they, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm happy to connect with our program staff and get more details on the locations.
It'd be
I'll do that.
interesting to see because we do have a significant desert here. So that's a really good number, but we need a lot more. It's a workforce issue.
Thank you. Seeing no further objections.
I'm off.
Thank you. All of these consent items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your final review. Next, County Council salary range and classification specifications. The team from Human Resources will present. Evelyn Meyer Lawrence, the Director, Heather Pedersen, Classification and Compensation Manager, and Jared Haddock, Recruitment Manager. These are some final steps the staff needs to
bring
help
up another
prepare the
chair if you
recruitment
want,
for the County Council position.
Yeah. Jared's going to bring up an additional chair so all three can sit together.
Thank you.
Welcome. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. I'm Evelyn Miner Lawrence, Human Resource Director, and with me here this morning I have Heather Pedersen, the county's Class Comp Manager, and then Jared Haddock, the Recruitment Manager. Okay.
Go ahead.
We are here this morning to discuss the salary range for the county council. In your packet, you have a copy of the classifications specification for county council, and this is the document that Borthman will use to build the actual recruitment profile. You should also have the market study that was conducted by Heather Pedersen as well. And so we are here to go through that market study with you and answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Heather.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith. Good morning, Commissioners. So as Evelyn mentioned, you have several documents in your packet. One of the reasons that we're here this morning is because in 2021, the board adopted a flat rate method for the positions of county administrator and county council. Those are the two unique positions within the county where the incumbents report directly to this board. And so that was a method that was adopted by the board in 2021. Prior to that, those classifications had been assigned a salary range, just like every other classification within the county. And the benefit of that in 2021 was that it allowed this board to be a little bit more flexible in the assignment of a salary to those two positions that do report to them. In your packet, you have the memo from August of 2021 that included the recommendation for that method. Now, I'm not here to recommend that we change the method, but when you go out to recruit, you don't want to offer a flat rate because you want to be competitive. You want to be able to offer a salary range that an individual might be able to consider if the county is going to be meeting their salary needs. And so offering a flat rate would not do for a recruitment process. We want to say, this is what we would expect you to come in at. And of course, it would be at the decision of the board. So based on the information that you have in your packet, we looked at local jurisdictions, other counties in the area, and you have some information about that. Their average ranges for those that have ranges go from about $200,000 at the minimum up to about $275,000 at maximum. You also have information about the actual incumbents' pay rates at those organizations, and I provided you some information about how long those incumbents have been in their positions that might be helpful. As I mentioned, the county does have existing salary ranges established, and so what we would recommend to use for the purposes of this recruitment would be a range similar to a non-Rep 44, which I know that number doesn't mean anything to you, but the range associated with that would be a minimum of approximately $195,000 up to $263,800. And so that's what we'd be recommending as a competitive range to advertise. Again, it's negotiable. Once you find a candidate, you can negotiate a flat rate at that time, and that advertisement would be, depending on experience of the candidate and all of the things that you're looking for.
So this is the salary, but in addition to that are benefits, correct?
Absolutely
Yes.
correct. Yes.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Commissioner West.
Why is Marion County not used as a comp? I just naturally feel like they'd be a better comp than maybe Clark County. I don't know. So a question around that on why we chose these specific comps and what goes into that. And then why I'm looking at this, you guys sent this spreadsheet or these tables on county council recruitment, and you have a number of different jurisdictions listed. It talks about often, well, not in Washington County because they just do flat, but there's these spreads associated, and they are all over the place. And so why do we look at spread? How do we determine Clackamas County's spread and what's appropriate for our spread, and why did we get to the range that we did?
All good
All good
questions.
questions. And Heather can answer it.
Yes. So in 2007, prior to 2007, the county did look at Lane and Marion counties as comparables. And we like to be consistent when we look at any market for any classification. We want to look at the same comparables because if we're just picking and choosing, we can be all over the place. It was decided in 2007 by the HR director at the time, the county administrator, to change the comparables that we used because what we found is that Lane and Marion County, they're outside of the Portland metropolitan area. We were not attracting people from those counties typically to come and work in Clackamas County. And what we had learned is that their salary grades were lower. And so when you look at the market, we're typically looking at the average of the comparables, and they were pulling down the market average. So we were always finding ourselves recommending something higher to be more competitive with Washington County, Multnomah County, those counties where we are competing with directly in the Portland metro area. And Clark County, while it's not in Oregon, it is, in that more close vicinity to us.
Okay.
And then your other questions related to a salary range.
The spread, and there's there's so much discrepancy between like the different spreads and how do we come to our spread, and how do you know you're in that right range, and understanding that, and the importance of, because we're not doing, it looks like the Washington County is an outlier here.
Yeah, for county council, Washington County is the only jurisdiction that provides just a flat rate like we do. Where we see it more consistently is with the county administrator positions. I think most all of them have a flat rate for county administrator. The spread it's the philosophy of that organization. And what I have found is they're not always consistent in their spreads either. So Multnomah County, you have a 60% spread from their minimum to their maximum.
Yeah.
That's not how all of their non-rep classifications are. So I can't tell you why they came to that. What I can tell you is that Clackamas County, our non-represented spreads are 35% from the minimum to the maximum.
That's consistent throughout the organization?
Consistent throughout the non-represented compensation plans, yes.
Okay. And we came to 35% because?
That
just is what we
That is
did?
before my time. It is
Okay.
what it is, and that's what we've maintained over time. Now, that is something that could obviously change, but that's our consistent method, and it's been that way for some time.
And do you feel like that's been an effective and proper spread with a good range, or do we see?
I think as long as we are remaining competitive within the market, it's an appropriate spread. What that does mean, though, is with the merit increases that employees receive, those salary adjustments for performance over the course of their tenure of, typically a merit increase is 3.5%. It could take them less time to get to the top.
Yeah.
So that's really what that spread is.
How long was our current council with us?
He has been with us for just over 12 years.
12 years, and then I look at Multnomah County, 11 years. They have a bigger spread, so I assume it's a lot more time and effort to get to that large
Right.
number there, right?
Right.
And I guess you want to find the happy medium between to encourage longevity and growth, along with having the ability to not just be like, oh, I'm at the top, and then, well, I'm going to look for the next thing in my career, and then we lose talent, right? So how do we
Right.
I'd like to have another council that works awesome for the county for another 12, 15 years. So I guess that kind of gets to my question a little bit is, do we have that balance here?
That was actually one of the reasons that in 2021, the board decided to go to the flat rate method specifically for these two unique positions, is that you weren't bound to a salary range. And you were able to base compensation on performance and not be bound to one grade where someone would get topped out and then not eligible for performance increases after that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, good morning, HR.
Morning.
You've suggested a salary range of 195 to 263K. When you look at applicants, are you going to make a recommendation to the board on that applicant where you think they should come in on that salary range based on your classification number 89 and the listed required tasks and knowledges and skills? Is that what we're going to get from you?
You want to talk about the spa?
I would love to talk about that. Thank you for that question, Commissioner Scholl. Jared Haddock, Recruitment Manager. We will be providing support to the board in that. And so, as Heather mentioned, ultimately, the board has the final decision on what decision and what compensation salary that they want to bring someone in at. But certainly, we will help. And with those conversations, taking into consideration experience, things like that, looking at the market and stuff. So absolutely.
All right, good, thank you.
Commissioners, also in this document are characteristics, knowledge, and qualifications, and then to be followed up at the very end on county code, how it addresses the employment of our county council. Is there any other questions or comments about this going forward? Gary, what is our action item on this today?
Today would like a decision if you agree with the recommended starting salary range for this position, and if not, would you please give us the numbers you'd like to see?
Do we need a motion?
No, because next week you're going to approve the whole package of the job description with the salary range.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it appears to me that the HR's recommendation of, 195 to 263 should attract quite a few interested people. Please make sure they know that they're coming to the best county in Oregon. Thank you very much.
And just this is up to negotiation depending on the candidates we get. So that's why the salary range is the way it is. Is there anybody who disagrees with the salary range presented to us today? Commissioner West?
I don't disagree with the salary range, but I do have a question about the typical tasks in the document before us here, where it talks a minimum of 7 years of related experience that would provide a required knowledge and skill to perform the responsibilities of the position. That's kind of broad. Is that on purpose? Like, do they need to have been within government for 7 years for us to consider them, or could they have been in a different role as an attorney? I know they have to be, a licensed attorney and board and pass the bar and whatnot, but what did we mean by experience in 7 years? And why 7? Why not 5? Why not 2?
Well, it is broad, and it's meant to be broad because this document is used for every job at the county. It's very standardized. And so the experience that of 7 years, and we did talk with Stephen Madcore, current county counsel, to see if he felt that was appropriate, and he agreed that it was appropriate. Of course, they have to have, they've gone to law school, they're a member of the state bar, and then 7 years of related experience. And really, when we go to run a recruitment, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a recruiter is working with the hiring manager for that particular position, they are determining what that relevant experience is. And it would be relevant at the same level of a position typically. Now, it might be progressive experience included in that 7 years, but I think you would be expecting someone to have public sector experience.
Totally, yeah.
And have run a law office of this sort in the past. But you will be making that decision with the representative from Prothman that will be running the recruitment.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments from commissioners? I don't see any lights on. Commissioners, are there any objections to HR moving forward with the salary range? Seeing no objections, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next item, advisory board and commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Clackamas County Vector Control District currently has one opening on their Board of Trustees due to completion of term. The ABC has a member roster of 5 members with 4-year terms. Through a recruitment process, 1 application was received. The recommendation for appointment is Dan Green.
I will accept a motion.
I move approval that we select Dan Green to another term on Vector Control.
Well, second.
Commissioner Schrader has moved that we appoint Dan Green for Clackamas County Vector Control District, and Commissioner West has seconded that motion. Any further decisions? Comments? Our decision is, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Zavas.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Next, your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, November 30th, 10 a.m. You have all the consent agenda items you reviewed today will be on your agenda, plus your other normal course of business, public communication, and commissioner communications. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday, and happy to answer it for you. The final item today, Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
Oh, great, okay. Commissioner Communications, Commissioner Shaw, I guess you're up first. You'll go down the line.
Okay, thank you, Chair Smith. I just have one comment here this morning. We hear more and more concern about carbon dioxide emissions and climate action plans. And so for those people who are listening, I just want to remind you that on 1 March, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners signed a policy position relating to natural gas, and we referenced in that letter HB 3152, which we opposed. The Board of County Commissioners supports all sources of energy and opposes legislation that would prevent the use of a specific energy option. So I think, Administrator Schmidt, this letter, is it available on our website somewhere?
It is on the date you approved of it. We can put it somewhere more prominently.
Okay, so people watching, if they could go to 1 March 2003, they'll find the policy position relating to natural gas. Okay, thank you very much. Chair, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you for that. Commissioner West.
That was really brief but important what you just brought up, Commissioner Scholl. That bill was defeated. Yay. I think I can speak for the board on that, since that's what our goal was in the last long session. But to take that one step further on a policy position about energy choice, maybe we as electeds like them more than everybody else, but maybe some type of energy choice resolution that turns that similar letter into an actual resolution for the board to make a clear statement on beyond just a legislative letter. It might be something we want to consider. Maybe not, maybe we can talk about that further, but just a thought that I had, just because I think it gets to your point about how can people see our position on such an important issue in Clackamas County. I'm going to actually hold my other thoughts to have a conversation with you, Chair, later, and then maybe bring it back. Mm-hmm. But I have some additional thoughts that I'm just going to sit on and be patient with, and then follow up with you, and then maybe we'll talk about them later this week.
Absolutely.
And that's all I got. And everybody, I hope everybody had an awesome Thanksgiving. I did. So, yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Schrader.
I just want to say I did have a fantastic Thanksgiving. I had an opportunity to visit a very close friend of mine down in Santa Rosa, and we met at the Benedictine Monastery in Mount Angel years ago, where I was an administrative librarian and she was teaching English as a second language. And I would like to make a comment about the letter on climate change. I did agree with the policy of eliminating things immediately because we do need bridge energy as we move into other forms of energy. But I do want to point out we do have a number of companies in this county that actually are involved in solar as well as wind energy, in particular Biles Fiberglass. When you go to see those big windmills in eastern Oregon and throughout the United States, they're actually one of the main folks that actually manufacture that. So I think that we can get by with both kinds of energy, and I think both create business and jobs in our county. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Don't have a whole lot to report, other than I did have a great Thanksgiving weekend. I did a lot of work, actually, included in that, including preparing for yesterday morning's meeting, the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee meeting. That took place in Portland, so that took a lot of work, actually, over the weekend. My report on that, the meeting as of yesterday, was primarily that a number of folks, echoed some of the concerns I raised and brought up their own concerns as well. So there was some requests for information that were made by others, financial information, and pointing out that the thrust of my comments yesterday were the fact that one of the documents in the packet did not acknowledge, nor did their presentation, verbal presentation acknowledge, or their slides acknowledge the existing diversion that we're experiencing today. I've been in communication with our staff, and even during this meeting, got another email from our staff. And I stated yesterday that after I went through just a number of documents dating back over the last 2 years, that I estimated the diversion at approximately 50,000 cars leaving the freeway approximately at this point, at this juncture, and that their other tolling proposal back last year would add at least another 50,000 on top of that. Well, I found out this morning that the number that we estimate is probably closer to 80,000 that are leaving the highway today at rush hour. And so the additional amount is probably going to be 50,000 approximately more on top of that approximate. We know the studies will determine that, but a rough number that we can say, I feel very comfortable with, is saying it's at least 50,000 cars are leaving the freeway every day because of the bottleneck. So we have two issues. Number one, the bottleneck, and the bottleneck is something that the board is one of the board's top priorities. And as a result of that, a follow-up conversation at the end of the meeting with the director of Oregon Department of Transportation, Chris Strickler, he posed the question to me, as I have mentioned to you all, has been posed to me by many, including legislators, if not tolling, then what? So I think that question is, and I don't have an answer because it's a board response that I don't have to respond on your behalf. So I think that is something we need to knock out here soon, frankly. I asked for that recently. I'm again, just kind of renewing that request, as well as pointing out that the request we did make, consistent with correspondence we sent to ODOT, was a request for analysis of an express lane on I-205. And during yesterday's meeting, that request was, the response was they are going to look at it. They're going to look at an express lane model. I don't like the way it's couched in the sense that it would only be between the west end of the Abernathy Bridge up to I-5 or Stafford. It would not be separate from or start earlier or along the entire eastern side of the Abernathy Bridge and beyond. So that said, that's something that they'll be studying. I don't know if it'll be as valuable in the way they're doing it as look at an express lane system, which would be not just 205 but also I-5. People need to have the value to be paying for something, I believe, and it would offer free lanes, which is our previous position or our existing position right now, absent anything else on express lanes. Altogether, I just want to remind my colleagues and the public that they're looking at a flat toll. They're looking at different tolls for just the Abernathy construction piece. And then the congestion pricing, called RMPP, will be in addition to that. And any other fees like the interstate bridge will be in addition to that as well. So these tolls stacked are being looked at individually. They're not being looked at collectively. And I think that's one of the other heartburn issues we have, is that you read the packet, and even one of the members from another county yesterday had confused the flat or the Abernathy toll with the regional congestion pricing RMPP toll, and not really being aware that they're not the same, they're not being studied at the same time, and they're not being compiled together in one comprehensive understanding. So it's, I won't say lowballing in a sense. I'm not saying it's like a deliberate tactic, but in essence, it's very confusing, because when people say, oh, the toll could be 75 cents. Well, yeah, it could be as low as 75 cents, but when you also add on the other tolls, it becomes a much higher amount, and also the up to amount of $2.15 or $2.25 or $2.50. One toll's $5.60. So they're looking at all these different scenarios. But in totality, there's not one document that combines them and they say, here's what the tolls could be at the bottom with all these collective tolls for a trip down I-5 or a trip down 205. And that, I think that's a part is confusing for the public to understand.
Paul, did you say the Abernathy toll, did I hear that correctly? That is to pay for the bridge improvements?
The discussion yesterday was simply to assist in payment, because the total project cost is over $600 million. They're looking for $380 million of bonding authority for that balance. So $380 million of bonding authority would require a toll, and this toll would pay that only for the construction of the bridge. It was pointed out, though, I did mention, to allude, I mentioned that there were financial questions raised. Someone did some math, and it was raised in the meeting. If the toll was only $1, and based on the traffic counts, if it was only $1, it would, over the 30-year period or 25-year period, I forgot which, it would raise $1.1 billion. So where's the delta? What's the difference? Where's the money going between 380 and 1.1 billion? And there was a demand or an ask, a strong ask from several members for a better, clearer understanding of where those dollars are going. And I think that's a reasonable ask, and I support that ask. So, but if it's $2, folks, that's 2.2 billion.
So, Paul, I want to be clear what I'm hearing. ODOT is going ahead with the seismic repairs on Abernathy, and I was always under the impression they had that money and it was paid for. Now, are you saying that they're going to toll us for reimbursement for the bridge repairs when they were supposedly paid for?
Well, let's be really clear, as confusing as this all is. So when HB 2017 passed, there was no money attributed in 2017, HB 2017, for the Abernathy Bridge. So, you know, at the line below, down in the language of the bill, it says, thou shalt look at tolling for construction of the bridge. So that's what they're doing. And I will bring up that the HB 3055 supported taking some of the money from the Rose Quarter, borrowing it essentially, the penny, the flexible penny, to kickstart the project, okay? So only a portion of it was funded to get the project started. Now they are trying to fill the gap. So the gap was never filled. There was never full funding. And the project Rose for the bridge originally was estimated around $250 million back in 2017. And that's just, as we know, everything's gone up significantly, and now that project is north of $600 million.
So my next question is, Highway 217 in Washington County has gone under extensive repairs for a very long time. Are there any plans to toll that? This may be a rhetorical question. Also, is it true, and I asked this question of staff, is it true that Highway 217 will never be tolled because the Washington County Board of Commissioners did a traffic study to indicate it would not be feasible to toll Highway 217?
Yes, Washington County did a study, partially yes. Washington County did a study that recommended not tolling 217 because of diversion, which is very similar to our scenario. Should it or should not be tolled. But I don't know that it means that because they did that it'll never be tolled. Like, I don't think we can jump to that conclusion. And for staff that are listening, PAs especially, Alred, if you are listening, and others, the WEA, the West Side Economic Alliance, has got a meeting scheduled, their monthly meeting, I believe, to talk about that study they did a few years ago. And I would like to attend that if possible. So that means I might be absent or late for a meeting. I think I want to be there to hear if Washington County businesses and Washington County public officials support tolling either 217 or Highway 26. So there's a buzz out there that the ODOT is moving forward with tolling 217 and 26. I think that's a rumor. I haven't heard that from ODOT. All I heard is the WEA has resurrected this old study, and people are thinking it's a fresh study, confusing it that it's new, when it's actually several years old.
I too heard about the tolling of Highway 217 and 26, and I heard that through a very reliable source, matter of fact. And so we'll see where we end up on this. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Well, Commissioners, yes, we had a wonderful Thanksgiving time off. We had 2 days off and then the weekend, of which I'm very thankful for. I too was working very hard on a lot of issues affecting Clackamas County. I had the opportunity to meet with, on a phone call with Commissioner West and one of our national experts on the recovery model that we're considering, and I appreciate that conversation very much. It's always good to be able to talk and get clarification on topics. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.